Hello, and you're very welcome to the very first in a series of live shows that we'll be hosting as part of the Mobiography Awards. My name is Glenn Mulcahy. I'm one of the co-founders, and let me bring my other co-founders on screen. Andy.
Hello there.
Hi, Andy. And Brendan.
Hi, Glenn. Hi, Andy. Hi, everybody.
Great that the tech is working so far, guys. So fingers crossed people out there can actually see and hear us. We'll be keeping an eye on comments throughout the show on YouTube. So please do interact with us as we go. It did kind of dawn on me a couple of minutes before I hit the big go live button that there may be people joining this stream who've, one, never heard of Mobiography, or two, never heard of any of the three of us. So there might be no harm in starting the first show, I think, with a little introduction. Brendan, would you like to kick off?
Okay, thanks, Glenn. So my name is Brendan O'Shea, and I am from Cork in Ireland. I'm not a professional photographer, but in my free time since about, I'd say, 2012, I've been using this device here for my hobby and passion of photography. That I work in university is my day job, an education background. So I bring my education background and my love of photography together. I do a lot of workshops and I do them around the world. And that it's great to be involved with Glenn and Andy and to bring you these Mobiography Awards, and particularly the learning events that we're planning around this event here. So I'm looking forward to showing you today, giving you some of inspiration and showing you some of my shots and what I love about photography.
Fantastic, Brendan. Thanks a million. And Andy, how about you?
Hi. My name's Andy. I'm the founder and editor of Mobiography magazine, which is a digital magazine dedicated to the art of smartphone photography. I've been taking photos with my iPhone since May 2012, and for me, it's given me the ability to shoot what I want, where I want, when I want, and all from one device without having to carry around a big DSLR camera. In April 2013, I launched the magazine, Mobiography magazine, which is still one of the only magazines on this subject. And for those who aren't familiar with it, it's an app. It's available on iOS and Android, and you can check it out at mobiography.net/mag. And I've been publishing that for 8 years, and it's been a great source of inspiration for many people and has built up a great community over the past 8 years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And I suppose I'm a tiny bit of a dark horse in the picture, in the sense that my background is broadcast television and news. But I have, for the last decade, actually been training people on how to use phones to basically make professional content, often for broadcast. And a huge part of that training obviously involves smartphone photography. So in my own spare time as well, I'm a passionate amateur photographer. I love taking pictures with my phone. And that's why I was so excited when Andy and Brendan reached out to me and asked, would we collaborate on this project? So that's a little bit about us. The whole essence of Mobiography Awards is rooted in this idea of giving back to community. And I think it's really important, Andy, that you basically explain a bit of the logic or the inspiration for how it all came together.
Well, I suppose the idea started about 5 or 6 years ago at the first MojoCon conference in Dublin, which was a mobile journalism conference organised by Glenn. On that event, there was a day dedicated to smartphone photography, and the workshops and the photo walks that were there were really inspiring for me and Brendan and everyone that was there. And it was around that time that we started throwing around the idea of doing something together. And that conversation went on over the last few years. And this year we sort of decided to go for it and to put on a competition. That competition launched 3 weeks ago. There are 4 photographic categories and 1 multimedia video category. But in putting it together, we wanted it to be more than just a competition. We wanted to sort of give back to the community. And that is why we're hosting these series of live workshops as well as the podcast, which the aim is to inspire people and to offer some educational aspect to the awards, which fundamentally has been at the heart of Mobiography for the past 8 years. So here we are today, the first event with Brendan. And yeah, I, for one, looking forward to seeing what he's got in store for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I will also give a quick shout out. I'm looking at the comments coming in on YouTube, and we have people joining us from Orlando, Bath in the UK, New York. We have someone from Malaysia. God bless you all for deciding to give it up the time of day or night, as it probably is in those parts of the world, but we appreciate you joining. Remember, you can ask questions in there. We'll be keeping an eye on those comments, and towards the end of the session, we'll take some of those questions up on screen, and one or the three of us will hopefully try and give you some answers if we can. But anyway, I don't want to waste any more time because every minute is precious, and Brendan is going to kick off with his presentation. Brendan, over to you.
Thanks, Glenn. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to give a short presentation, talk about my love of iPhone photography, smartphone photography, how I've been using this device for the past number of years. And first thing you notice, I use a strap, and a very quick technique, quick trick. Get a lanyard. If you don't have one that is purposely built for a strap, heat a little needle, pierce the side of your case and thread through the strap. And what the strap will give you is added security. And it's a really, really good way to start off. So talking about photography, I think for me, the great thing about the iPhone or any smartphone is that it is what you see is what you get, and you can shoot on auto, and it allows you to concentrate what is the most important thing about photography, and that is composition. So for me, the skill of framing, the art of reframing, and I like to think about it trying to see what can be seen and how to see it. And that is the construction, the craft in photography as we go through it. So I'm going to walk you through some of the compositional elements that go into making good, dynamic, visually interesting photographs. And I'll talk about my technique. I'll talk about some mistakes I make, because it's good to learn from mistakes. And I always add to it, it's good to learn from the mistakes of others. So when we get into photography, the first thing that we talk about is light. And the absence of light is darkness. Photography comes from the Greek photography, painting with light, and light is everything. And even as you're here now watching this presentation, if you look around your room or whatever environment that you're in, and just notice and observe the light and the movement of light through your room, there could be reflections, there could be shadows, etc. So with this photograph here, I was attracted to the zigzag shapes of the reflections coming down the step. And I used to break the pattern, the yellow at the end, to provide an anchor in the image. So I set up my composition. And the thing about photography is that photography very much is just as much about what you can't see as what you can see. So I had my frame set up with the yellow anchor breaking the pattern at the end, the zigzag of the light reflecting on the steps, but I needed another element, and I had to wait. And patience, while it's not a compositional feature, it really, really is the craft in photography, because so often photography is very frustrating, but sometimes patience meets luck, and you get the image that you wanted. So for this one, I waited, had my composition set up, and the woman came walking into the frame. And here's now one of the first takeaway points about mobile photography. I used burst mode. And what's burst mode? Burst mode is simply that I kept my finger on the shutter. And with your iPhone or your Android phone, what it will do is that it will take about 8 frames in a second. And later you can go back and you can select the photograph that you like most, and it allows you, like I did here, to get the woman in movement. So we have the sense of movement because she's in stride, her legs are apart. Okay, so as we're going through it, I'll talk about different compositional elements with each photograph. But again, we're looking here at light. Now, here's another thing about photography. Photography can make you blind. Now, what does that mean? It means that you're attracted, you're magnetized to what gets your visual attention initially. So for me here, it was the dancer with the beautiful gesture that she has with the fans. But in terms of framing, I'd set up, she's my central focal point. But then I noticed that the window to the right behind her was overexposed. So what the camera had done is that the camera had made the decision for the light on the dancer, and that the balance of light, the exposure then, wasn't corrected for the light behind the window. So what I needed to do was I needed to separate the focus and the exposure. And I used an app for that, and I'll put it in the link in a minute for you, called Pro Camera, and that allows you to separate the focus and exposure. So I exposed for the brightest part, exposed for the highlights, as would be the rule in photography, and it allowed me to adjust and get a good balance of the light for the exposure. And then I used burst mode again, because the dancer was in movement and I wanted to get the correct gesture, because gesture adds so much to a photograph. So we moved on from light, now we're about framing. And everything is about framing, about composition. What are you going to leave in a frame? What are you going to leave out of a frame? So with this photograph here, what initially got my attention was the gesture of the guy holding his head in his hand, looking at his phone. And I loved that, sense of concentration that he had. That was the first thing that got my attention. Then I noticed the reflection of the car we were traveling in his vehicle. Then the next thing that got my attention that I was trying to frame into the shot were the wheels on either side. And I wanted to get symmetrical balance. Now, I didn't get it because we were in movement, they were moving. But one other thing that I draw your attention to is that with the guy who's holding his head in his hand, you see that there's a little bit of a gap between his head and the frame of the window. And that allows the full form of his head to be seen. So again, I had to move a little to make sure that I was framing this and allowing the space, that it wasn't lost within the frame of the window. They call that figure to ground, making sure that there's clear form of your subject. So again, with framing, it's about decisions. And photography is all about decisions. And here we have what to leave in, what to leave out. So look at the two frames. This is the first one that got my attention. Drawn to the lens flare splitting the screen, using the wing as a base in the frame. But then I noticed, and here's where the reframing comes in. I noticed the passengers getting on to the plane, providing this lovely silhouette because the harsh light is behind them. And I reframed to allow the story of the passengers alighting, getting onto the plane. Now, this is a photograph I took with the iPhone 4 back in 2011. And it's one of the photographs that I really, really love to demonstrate how fantastic this device is. And that it's the greatest camera ever invented. Why? Because when I took that photograph, I was traveling and I had checked in my bags and my real camera was checked in. And that I went from a situation where you have the experience, you see something and you go, wow, that would make a wonderful photograph. You ever had that experience? I think everybody has. But because I had a camera with me, I was able to get the shot. And I moved from a situation where I would experience that, wow, that looks lovely. That would make a lovely shot. And being passive and reactive, I moved from that situation to being active and looking and seeking out photographic opportunities. And it's been a wonderful journey that I've been on. Thinking about composition again, and thinking about in a photograph, what do you want your viewer to do? You want the viewer to engage with the elements in the photograph. You want the viewer to know what your focal point is. How can you achieve that? Very often, leading lines will do that for you. And you see the image here with the lovely yellow line bringing us down to our first subject who's just off center. And then the line continues to a vanishing point at the end of the tunnel. And leading lines are an effective way to bring your viewer into the photograph and to say to them, have a walk around, find the interesting parts, see the focal point that I established in the image. Leading lines can exist naturally in nature, and also that you can, you'll see them in, with streets, with staircases, so many things that will have leading lines. This photograph here changed my life, okay? That this photograph changed my life because in 2014, when I took it, 5 months later, Apple chose it and put it on billboards all around the world. And it opened up opportunities for me to combine my love of photography with education and give workshops. But this photograph here demonstrates leading lines. It demonstrates human element in the photograph. And it also has contrast and so many different features within the image. For me, before I went to this location in Copenhagen, in my mind's eye, I knew how I wanted to frame the photograph. I wanted to be at the top to accentuate the movement of the lines in this park in Copenhagen. And I wanted the human element. And I was up on this at the top of the hill with my friend taking photographs there for about maybe 30 minutes. I'm quite frustrated. Nothing was happening as I had, imagined in my mind's eye. And again, when you think about photography is as much about what you can see as what you can't see. And I had in my mind's eye, people walking through and getting a nice kind of dynamic and interplay between them. And then this shot here, 4 people came into the frame. And as I say, the rest is history. But leading lines are a great way to bring your viewer into the image. Rule of thirds. Now we're getting on to rules. Great thing about rules, they can be broken. but it's good to have an idea of what rule of thirds establishes, what it achieves. Now, the first thing that I would say to you is that on your phone, that if you go to your settings, you'll be able to set up your screen with the rule of thirds. What it will do is that it will divide your screen into 9 different squares. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to position your subject at the intersection of those lines. And from the rule of thirds, we get 2 other rules. We get the rule of space, so you can see the character here, that there's space for him in the frame, and also the rule of movement, so that our eye will enter the frame and that we are able to perceive the sense of movement and sense of space that the character will have. And the rule of thirds is a good way, again, to bring your viewer into the image, because sometimes if you break the rule of thirds and put them right in the center, it's a little bit jarring. But rules are there to be broken and to be experimented with. This photograph here, number of things that I'll draw your attention to. The first thing is that we've got leading lines. So you see the yellow line bringing us up to our subject of the girl who's off center. And here what I want you to focus on is that imagine if she was a celebrity and I was paparazzi and I was selling this photograph to the newspapers. The newspapers would buy it. Why? Because I didn't crop out her feet. And I remember watching a documentary one time about paparazzi, and they said that if paparazzi are photographing a celebrity coming out of a nightclub and that they crop out the feet, crop out the limbs, they can't sell it. And again, photography makes you blind. And so often I see photographs where people, because they're magnetized to the main subject, what they've done is they haven't examined their scene, they haven't framed and reframed. And the art of photography, the art of composition is in the ability to reframe and to see, oh, I must leave a space for the full form of my subject. So we have the leading lines bringing us to the girl off center, the rule of thirds. And from that, then we have the movement up again to the guy in the top left with his eye, and he's again off center, the rule of thirds. And then we've got lovely rhythm and balance with all the umbrellas. The other thing that I would say about this photograph is that when I was shooting, I didn't use flash. I used the available light. And that when you're using available light, you're going to get a much better image. The flash would have just extended about 1.5 meters, maybe illuminated the girl in front, and everything else would have been, badly exposed. Contrast. Contrast is when you're trying to minimize distractions. And so often, converting to black and white is going to achieve this. In this very minimalist photograph here, that we've got 3 elements in play. We've also what you would call rule of odds, and that the eye knows what to look at, because the white shoes of the female are acting as a singular object. So we've got the black shoe on either side of it, and the eye comes into the center. So contrast, particularly with black and white, makes it again a visually dynamic image for a viewer. With this photograph here, this is a photograph that I took in Jakarta in 2016. I'm going to look at elements again of contrast. I knew that when I took it, I was going to convert to black and white because I really wanted to accentuate the patterns, the texture, the tones of the baked in clay in the dock worker's hands. I knew I was going to apply a strong vignette, and I was going to apply, kind of harsh contrast to achieve this. But also, if you notice, the perspective is from a higher to a lower position. And again, when you're thinking about portrait photography, that portraits, when you're revealing someone's character, does it always have to be the face? Sometimes, the hands and other body parts can tell the story of who a person is just as powerfully. Moving on, reflections. Now, reflections I absolutely love. And you think about, again, what we're going through. We're looking through about ways of trying to see what can be seen and how to see it. As you're watching this presentation here with me today and you're looking at your screen, if you look long enough, you'll find your own reflection. If you look at the screen, you'll begin to see reflections of things bouncing around the room as light passes in and out of your room, or you might have artificial lighting. It might be late where you are. I know there's people from Malaysia here, and that it could be in your room that you've got your light source, and that's causing reflections. And the great thing about photography is that once you begin to see, once you begin to notice these things, you'll never be able to unsee them or unnotice them. And reflections are just a beautiful way to create, creative images. This one here, if you look at the bottom center of the image, you'll see where I am. And to get this photograph, I jumped out in front of, now the bus wasn't moving, okay, but I jumped out in front of the bus in traffic, and I didn't do any focus because I wanted to have this distortion, this layered effect running through the bus. And I like the way that, you know, you're able to see and examine the different things at play. So reflections are a wonderful way to have, you know, creative, visually dynamic photographs. Again, you're looking and you're thinking about of what gets your visual attention. And you're thinking about how can I present it in, you know, maybe new or intriguing ways. And I find reflections very often can achieve this. So this is a very simple scene in Dublin of Georgian houses, just two colors that we have in play of the doors, and we've got the patterns and textures of the brickwork. And I had taken a photograph of the doors straight on, but I was examining my scene. Again, you're thinking about framing, reframing, and I was looking, how else can I present them? And reflections achieve that for me. And this is shooting from the top of a car, getting the reflections of the doors from the top of the car to create this little bit of distortion. And again, it's just trying to see what can be seen and how to see it. And again, framing, reframing within as you go through it. Portraits. With the iPhone 7 Plus, which was my favorite of all the iPhones, they introduced the portrait lens, and it just changed the way I approach photography completely, because I went from being a candid, you know, hunter, street photographer on the move, taking photographs of, you know, things that get my visual attention, to now combining that and engaging with people on the street, telling them what I, you know, found interesting about them, complimenting them, and all the while making portraits of them. And that I know that a good friend of mine was standing right next to me when I took this photograph in Bangkok, Renzo, you might remember this one. And that with this woman here, that when I approached her, I complimented her and told her, oh, I love your sunglasses. And that, would it be okay to take your photograph? And you'll find that most people in this situation, you know, their first response, first reaction is curiosity. But if you're friendly and you pay a compliment to somebody and explain your purpose, very often they'll be delighted for you to take their photograph. Now, what I want to draw your attention to here is that, and it's a very easy technique to practice, that with portrait photography, what you're trying to achieve is that for your character's face, that there's nothing protruding. Okay, you know the classic one that people put the two fingers up behind someone when they're taking their photograph, so that there's a clean background around the portraits. So for this woman here, as I was taking her portrait, if you look at the background was a little distracting. So I had to ask her to move a little. Sometimes it's you who has to move, but sometimes it could be your subject. And as I was moving her, my own reflection popped up in one of the frames of the lens. And for me, that was a great bonus. I like this photograph as well, because if you notice the patterns in it, that we've got the circular, spherical sunglasses, her nostrils, her mouth, her earrings, the polka dot on her dress, her head and face. And what I did as well, it's a great little technique for people on the street to make them at ease. As you're talking to them, tell them about things about yourself. And also at the end, show them the photograph and take it a step further, email them the photograph. So this Korean lady, I emailed her the photograph after, and she was delighted with it. So it's a good way to build confidence in getting street portraiture, telling people what got your attention, pay them a compliment, and the next thing we move on with portraits. We put two here. And why are there two photographs? Because I wanted to demonstrate. This is from a project I did here in Ireland with Bord Gáis on the Irish Hurling Championship. Did it over 16 weekends, went to 19 games to meet the fans, get to hear their stories and make their portraits as I was doing it. And if you look at the first photograph, there's a tension between the father and the son. The father is telling the story of how the son got lost at a big hurling match here in Ireland. 5 minutes into the game, the boy disappears. And his beloved Galway are playing the All-Ireland final. Now, as I was listening to them and encouraging them to continue with the story, I was all the time click, 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 taking multiple photographs, because I was waiting for the payoff. And the payoff came. I knew that they would, at the end, the two of them would move from this tension of the father telling a story where the son was misbehaving to the point when the two of them would look at the camera and break out laughing. And photography is very much about anticipating that. And to achieve it, you just have to take multiple photographs, okay? You can talk about working the scene might be a way to do it, but that I knew the moment would come. And the thing about photography is you're working in fractions of seconds, maybe 1/60th of a second, 500th of a second, 1,000th of a second. And with portraits, you're looking, it could be just a micro gesture of a laugh, a smile, or something, which would capture your subject, portray them, and reveal them. So the takeaway point, work your scene, take multiple photographs, and engage with the people you're taking photographs with. Perspective. So we talked about photography is working in fractions of seconds, but perspective also by shifting your point of view, the way that you're looking at something can dramatically change a scene. Photographers need many, their skills and talents, but what they also need are good knees. Now, when I took this photograph, I got down silently, but when I stood back up, everybody in the cafe behind turned around at the creaking noise of my knees. Okay, maybe a little exaggeration, but the point is that don't always have it at your eye level, and particularly for parents. If you're taking photographs of your children, get down to their level. Tell the story at their level. Or if you want to make the world very, very big for them, you might have a perspective like this. So this here is that you're from a lower to a higher perspective. Now again, to demonstrate this, a juggler juggling, it's a very interesting scene, but usually people will do it at eye level. I entered a contract of trust with this guy here. I got in the flat of my back between his legs, and he was juggling and I was snapping to get the photograph, just to present a different perspective with it. So when we're talking about photography with fractions of seconds for opportunities, perspective can change things very much as well. So it could be that you shoot from a lower to a higher position, higher to a lower, or experiment. It could be that you just need to move a little bit, a couple of centimeters maybe, or it could be your subject needs to move, but take multiple photographs. Okay, work the scene because it's digital, it's free. You can delete them later on, but you can come back and, it could be that one of the extra photographs that you took is the photograph that you want to enter this competition. So take multiple photographs. Movement. Here's another little technique here to demonstrate to get the reflections. So to get the reflections on the shutters, what I did was I pinned the camera up against the shutter. And it's a very simple technique to get the reflections. Later, after the session, if you try it on any reflective surface, on your television, on your rooftop, you'll get this lovely reflection split screen with it. And movement, again, that if you look at the two characters that we have, the first guy looking at me, legs are open, they're in stride, burst mode, because I wanted to get that. Contrasted with the guy behind him, his legs are like that. We don't have the same sense of movement. So burst mode is really important here. Okay, one other little trick for you, that if you looked at the guy is making eye contact with me, and that makes it more visually intriguing, visually dynamic. So the way that I did that is I had my frame set up. I knew what I wanted to get into the frame. And as he was passing by, I was looking at him because I wanted him to look back at me to get that added little detail, which makes it more visually interesting for the viewer. Again, with this, when I posted this on Instagram, a few years ago, one of the comments I got was, brilliant timing. It's not. Photographs lie. There's nothing brilliant about the timing here. But what is achieved is from setting up the composition first. So I established my frame. What was very important for me was the guy at the bottom, because he adds a point of view to it, and he also adds depth to the photograph. So I had my frame set up. I wanted to make sure I had the yellow and the yellow box over with the writing on it. I had my characters up getting ready to jump in. I had the frame set up, and then burst mode. Click, 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 as he was jumping into the water. And I got numerous photographs that I could use from that. Just went back later on and selected the ones that I want. Again, setting up your frame, anticipating it, and working the scene, and making sure that you don't get back disappointed because you've only one photograph and the guy is behind the guy in the white t-shirt, for example. No, work the scene, multiple photographs, patterns. And again, what I would say about this is once you begin to see, once you begin to notice, and it'll come from curiosity, once you begin to see patterns, you won't be able to unsee them. And even in your room where you are at the moment, I'm sure if you looked around and saw how light is behaving, how reflections are establishing themselves, you'll begin to notice patterns in the room as well. And when you're looking for these things, what you'll find is that very, very ordinary things, you're trying to present them in an extraordinary way. And photography is transformational in that's what you're able to do, what you're able to decide what to leave in a frame and leave out of a frame. So with this one here, this is just a staircase in Bali, and it was calling out to be photographed. And it was calling out then to continue with the minimalist look to it, to convert to the black and white, to ensure that the contrast is dramatic with it. But patterns can be everywhere. So with this photograph here, a number of takeaway points. So this is just neon reflecting on a car surface. And did I use a flash? No. Had I used a flash, what would have happened is I would have lost all the reflections and I would have just projected this big white blob of light onto the front of the bonnet of the car. So takeaway point, use ambient light. And a very good technique that you can have is that on your smartphones, if you tap the screen, it will focus on the point that you want to tap. But it'll also expose, and that means it will make a light adjustment for that part. And it will allow you then to adjust the exposure by sliding down if you're on iPhone to darken. Some Android phones, you swipe to the right to darken or swipe to the right to brighten, and it'll allow you to correct your exposure. It's a very, very good technique. And again, what I would say to demonstrate this, tap to focus, tap to expose technique. When you lift up your camera, the camera is going to make decisions. And sometimes it'll make the correct decision, but sometimes for light, you need to override it. And you can do so by just tapping on the brightest part of the screen, and the screen will adjust, the frame will adjust the exposure for you. So later, when you're watching television tonight in a dark room, put your phone up and put it everywhere except for the TV. Tap everywhere except for the TV. And then when you tap on the TV, you'll see you'll have corrected the exposure and the light will be perfect for it. Good little technique that you can use for that. Silhouettes. Now, I like silhouettes. I love it's a really nice effect when you achieve it. How to do it is again the tap to expose. What you're establishing is the brightest part. So in this scene, it's the shutters behind our subject. That was the brightest part. So I tapped to focus there, tapped to expose, and I locked it. You will see on the iPhone it says AE, AF, auto exposure, autofocus lock. Had my frame set up. So there's my framing. Then we're getting in again to the art of reframing. With the reframing, I'm making sure that when I get my human element walking into the screen, into the frame, that they're properly exposed in light. And also what I don't want to happen is that I don't want the guy's frame, his shadow, his silhouette, melting into the black darkness of the shadow in on the shutters. How did I achieve that? Burst mode. So as he was approaching, I was taking multiple photographs. And the photograph then that I chose was the one where his form is fully visible. And onto the final photograph. Again, here, when I posted this photograph, people, again, great timing. It's not. Okay, it's not that the guy is balancing the ball on it. He's throwing it, but because I had burst mode, I was able to get multiple photographs of it. And to expose, what I did was tapped the brightest part of the image, which was the sun to the left of the boy, and then this darkened and created the silhouette of the subject, set up my frame, and waited as he was throwing the ball and used burst mode to get it. So that's the end of the presentation. I hope that it presented you with a lot of ideas about how to compose and create visually dynamic, visually intriguing photographs, and that you can go out and have some fun and get the photographs that you want with your smartphone. Thanks very much.
Phenomenal, Brendan, I have to say. Absolutely phenomenal. Brilliant. It's worth, I suppose, if people now have looked at those amazing images and decided they want to see some more, where can they go to see your stuff? I've done a ticker especially. Let's test it. There you go. You want to call it out?
On Instagram, you see it in my name there at brendan.o.se. That would be where I would post. I post about once a week. I used to post much more on Instagram, but less lately.
Very good. So Andy and myself have both been kind of dipping in and out of the comments as they're kind of coming in on the YouTube channel. There's a number of different people have asked questions. I'm not gonna try and scan back and find them. There's so much conversation in there. That's just not going to be practical. So I'll call out the ones that stood out to me. So do you always shoot with pro camera, or do you use the native camera for control as well?
I would say that 97.34% of the time it's the native camera app. I keep it simple. It's on rare occasions that, like with the photograph that I had there with the light conditions, when I want to separate focus and exposure, then I would use pro camera. But no, I just love the simplicity of the native camera app, and I'm able to get the results that I want nearly all the time. One other app that I use, and you can maybe put in the link later, is Provoke. And I use that for black and white, and that one is just spectacular. Absolutely love it. But native camera, keep it simple.
Yeah, very good. There was a bit of a discussion blew up about burst mode and the old swipe towards the camera roll icon. Do you want to touch on that, or what are your thoughts?
One of my thoughts are that I was very sad and frustrated when Apple changed it, because before it was so simple, keep your finger on the shutter, but then they have this quick video. So I have so many 1-second videos in my camera roll that I don't use. With the iOS last year, they allowed the top volume button to perform the same function as a shutter. So that gets around it and makes it a bit easier, because I would, very often I would shoot and have the volume button as the shutter release. But I would use burst mode frequently, because again, you're working in fractions of seconds. And that the difference in terms of somebody smiling and frowning can be a split second. The difference between the light hitting someone's face and they're turning away, it's split seconds. So maximize your opportunities. Use burst mode, and it's very easy later on to go back and select the ones that you wanted.
Yeah, exactly. So that question was actually from Beth Zola. Sorry for not putting your question up on screen, Beth, but hopefully Brendan answered it there. This question popped up as well.
How did I manage to get so close to the front of that coat? That one of the great things about photography, out shooting, that you get in the zone. And what that means is that you're oblivious really to danger. And that I saw this photographic opportunity. The coach was closed, was stopped in traffic, but as you saw in the reflection, I got right up in front of it to get that photograph. And I think through the years, for my own photographs, what I find frustrating is, like most things in life, you don't regret the things that you did, you regret the things that you didn't do. And I don't like getting home, having in my mental picture of a shot that I could have got and didn't get. So I put myself at times in danger. Yeah, I have done, definitely. But, trying to get the shot, definitely, that you should do it.
Very good. Thanks for sharing the link to Provoke there, Andy, actually. So that's in the loads of people. I don't know if you can see the comments, Brendan, but there's loads of people complimenting you on the presentation. Phenomenal work, fabulous, great presentation, super presentation. You're a great presenter. I could go on, but, from Cork, he's already from the People's Republic. We'd only be...
Well,
there's a question here from Corinne Podger, who's joined us from Australia. Corinne asks about the platform. Yes, Corinne, this is StreamYard we're using. We're on the pro tier. We have all the buttons and whistles and things to be playing with, which is why I just keep pressing buttons for the fun of it. And there is a question about phones. Latest Androids of wild zoom capabilities. What do you guys think of them? Can you take that one?
I suppose the Huawei, has led the field in the use of these optical zooms, which they have, which are spectacular. And I've gotten some good shots with the Huawei P40. And one of them, won the architecture category in a competition one time, which I was very, very pleased with. I think, that you'll find with the new iterations of smartphone devices, they're going to improve very, very much in the ability to give you, 10x, 50x zoom. And, that's good. That's good. It's exciting. It's exciting that, with the innovations that are coming down the line with smartphone photography.
Yeah, and if I could comment, I recently had access to the Samsung S21 Ultra Pro, something like that. Anyway, the new one, and I have to say, like I asked to borrow it from Samsung Ireland just so I could play with the zoom, because they claim 100x zoom in photography mode, and with a huge big asterisk, it does do that. But about 50% of it is actually artificial intelligence. So really, it's a 50x zoom, which is a hybrid optical and digital, but it is amazing. In video mode, though, and, because I said at the outset, like, video is very much part of what I do. That's where I make most of my money. In video mode, it's got a maximum of 30x, and of that, 10 is digital. So I think the periscope lens phenomenon that we've seen mostly in Androids, actually only in Androids, is definitely a really, really interesting development. But I do think, having asked quite a lot of people about this, actually, an awful lot of the videographers that I've spoken to, and I'd imagine, guys, correct me if I'm wrong from the photography thing, a lot of photographers really, really like the ultra wides as well. And actually, I'm filming videos. The ultra wide, I have deliberately done this. I've put the shots from my 12 Pro Max beside a Fujinon lens of a broadcast TV camera, and damn, they are so close. It's actually scary. So yeah, I love the wide, I have to say.
Yeah.
Just looking in there, other questions. I think Annie's after. Oh wow, there's loads. Native camera app, of course, we talked about that a little bit. Brendan, do you use live photo function for anything?
I must say that I don't, and probably the reason I don't is that there's, I think it's still quite gimmicky, and like, what are you supposed to do with those photographs later on? I would have some live photos of my kids. But maybe I've created some loops with them, but no, not really. I think probably the thing with live photo is just make sure that you've got it switched off. That's what I would.
The best feature, there's a quote. I have to make up a social part just for that one. I've only found one use for it, actually. Asmer is if you hold the phone perfectly steady when you take a live photo. For instance, if you shoot a waterfall or something like that, one of the four modes that pops up is that you can do long exposure mode, and it gives you that lovely silky water effect. But to be honest with you, shout out for other apps. Slow shutter cam. I know Nikki is on the stream and she's a huge fan of slow shutter cam. And then what's the other one? The one Spectre, from the guys that make Halide. I love Spectre Cam because what's really unique about it is that it uses the image stabilization chip in the phone to stabilize the actual long exposure, which makes it like a godsend if you're shooting handheld. So we're checking out if you're interested in that. But that's the only thing. Live photos, other than that, bit of a gimmick in my opinion. But I don't know. Andy, weigh in on it.
Sorry, what was that?
I'm busy answering all the questions.
Yeah, I'm deep in the live stream.
Live photos mode. Any thoughts? Love, hate, useful, gimmick? What do you think?
I don't use it much myself. If I do use it, it's for the long exposure, like you say, with the water. It does real nice, sort of just smooths out any sort of blurring around that. It's great for the kids with the bouncing when they're on the trampoline.
yeah, just loop it or whatever. Yeah, exactly. Very good.
Yeah, I think the thing with the live photo that you need to be careful of is that it's taking a second of audio before, during, and after. And I always think of that famous royal photo at the time when they were getting the royal family together for the Christmas portrait, and that Prince Philip was getting frustrated with the photographer and shouted out to the photographer, "Take the effing photograph." And I always think if there was a live photo, if that was a live photo, you'd have the second of Prince Philip saying it, and you'd have the photograph as well. So you need to be careful that I wouldn't have it switched off. Yeah,
there's a whole privacy question about, is it always recording? I get asked that all the time in courses, actually. Okay, very good. Another question here. This one is, Brendan, about presentation stuff. How long do you find you have to wait for something great to happen in street shots? Do you ever walk away when it doesn't? Presumably.
Okay. That I would say that's 99% frustration, and that, like, I showed maybe about, I don't know, maybe 20 photographs there. I would have maybe a multiple of 100 that aren't photographs that that I'm happy with. That I come from Cork, which is quite a small city. To give you an example, the photograph that you see behind me here, that I did a presentation one time, and that somebody that was local camera club, and they said, "Oh, I know where that red wall is." So that gives you an indication of how small it is. So yeah, I find it's very frustrating. Again, what I was saying about photography is as much as what you can see is what you do. I come across a scene and I want the visual elements to interplay, and it doesn't happen. But when it does, there's great reward. It's very rewarding when it does. Yeah, but a lot of frustration.
Very good. We'll take another couple. There's quite a few coming in. This is great. Thanks so much for your interaction. Really appreciate it. There's another one for you, Brendan. Was it chance the photo of the girl in Japan with the umbrellas around her were clear? Or did you convert the image to black and white, then paint the color back in? I want to know the workflow.
Okay, so with that photograph, it pretty much is the scene was shot in color. I used Snapseed, and would be one of my favorite apps, along with Darkroom. I love Darkroom as well. And that in the editing, what I was trying to achieve with it was to make sure that the leading line of the yellow was bringing us into where the girl was located. And then I used the brush tool in Snapseed, and I just increased the exposure to make the umbrellas more luminous. And that really is, and maybe a bit of a vignette then to make sure that there wasn't anything distracting in the edges. But yeah, that's about it. What I did with the shot.
Okay, excellent, very good. Again, there's ton. It's really starting to heat up now. There's quite a lot coming in, so I'm just kind of cherry pick through what I can see. A little bit about the image behind you.
Yeah, so that photograph behind me is not iPhone. It's DSLR back in 2012. It's from a whole series of photographs that I did similar to that. This is one of my favorite photographs. I think that's why it's so big hanging in my home. And it's just I went through a phase of blurred out photographs of people, and that I just put this little some people call it bokeh heads, moon heads, onto them just to kind of add to the, I suppose, the isolation and the anonymity and sense of intrigue, you know that they're trying to achieve in photography. They're all in my Flickr. You can still see those, and that's what I want to get back to eventually. That kind of conceptual photography, I suppose. Very
nice. Another one there for you. Use add-on lenses like Moment as an example.
No, I don't. The add-on lenses, I like macro lens. I'd mess around with macro lens and do kind of, use it to have kind of distorted, blurred portraits. But no, but I've heard the Moment lenses are really, really good. And I think that what has happened is that before they were more appropriate when there was only a single lens on an iPhone or an Android, and it was great that you had these clip-on lenses, which for wide angle or zoom, etc. But now the phones are coming out and they've got multiple lenses, so it makes a lot of these, the clip-on lenses a little bit defunct, But Moment, yeah, do produce very, very good ones.
Yeah, I mean, we could do shout out quite a few different lens manufacturers. I have to say, I did invest in the Zeiss Exolens ones, which are probably the best glass that I've ever bought as an add-on. But they discontinued them as soon as the iPhone went to multi-lens. They just ceased production. That was it. It was gone. So yeah, is there a need for them anymore? I can think of one or two case studies, but that might be something I say for another session at a later time. I won't get into it now. There's still plenty more to get through. Here's another one. Len has put up a comment about 5-shot sequences and how that's used in video, which I'll touch on when I do my workshop in a couple of weeks. Is there something similar for photography? Well, that kind of brings us slightly nicely to tips and tricks and stuff. We won't go there just yet, though. Is there anything you'd share with them as a kind of a workflow thing, things to watch out for?
In terms of creating a sequence of images, was that the question, Glenn?
Yeah, well, actually, so we could go there because someone else has asked if you could offer any tips about, entering into the competition. So like to jump between that one and this one, tip, how to get a great shot.
Well, like I think the thing about, you want to maximize your opportunities and your chances in the competition. So I think, it's very easy to select photographs. I'm talking from experience. When I've entered competitions, I'd, select, 20 of my best photographs, but then to deselect is the hard thing, and you're going to have to kill your babies. Ones that you'll have strong attention, love for may not, fit with it. And I think what you're looking for is that if you have a photograph of the same scene, 3 photographs of the same scene, you're diluting your chances really, because that the 3 of them probably won't be selected. I think that when you're looking together through your portfolio of images, and that I think entering any competition, you should try to want to do as well as you can on it. You're trying to maximize your opportunities for that. Look through the images, get advice from other photographers, photographer friends, get advice from people who have no interest in photography, because very often they will be able to see things that you're blind to, and they'll offer comments that can be really helpful in that. But I think ultimately, when you're entering a competition, you have to trust yourself. And don't try to second guess the judges. Don't try to think, that one judge likes this. We'll have a session when people can meet the judges coming up, and that. But really, I think you need to trust yourself, and that you're trying to put together your best, 5 or 7 photographs that you think that can represent your work, and to enter them into the competition. But don't base it on Instagram likes as well, because Instagram is an algorithm that'll push things out to because I very like photographs that I think are my best don't perform that well on Instagram. Ones that I think that are only okay for some reason do better. It's a lottery. But yeah, trust yourself, get other people's advice, and be happy with the set of photographs that you send in.
Very good. I've just noticed that your videos just started stuttering quite a bit, Brendan. I'd say, can you quit the screen share just in case that's taking up a little bit of bandwidth in the background? We can hear you perfectly, by the way, so everything you're saying is spot on. Just the video, for some reason, is getting a little bit stuttery. So if you can quit.
To me, it is frozen as well, and I'm trying to correct it.
That's okay. We won't dwell on it. Just it's vanished off my screen now, so hopefully it'll free up a bit of bandwidth for you. Yeah. Okay. Well, look. So we did say we wanted to keep this to in and about an hour. We've had a constant 100+ people. Actually, peaked over 114 at one stage, which is wonderful. And thanks so much for giving up your time on a Saturday to join us for this. We did want to offer a couple of Easter eggs. So this is going to be a little bit interactive. So Brendan has put together a little kind of a giveaway thing just to kind of, refresh your memory. It's going to be interesting to see if this works, but fingers crossed it will. So let me just scooch down here and see if I can trigger this. So can I ask if you're still watching us, and hopefully you're watching us on something other than your phone, because if you're watching on your phone, this won't work. But if you are watching us on a laptop or a tablet, and if you have a phone handy, if you launch the camera application, and if you point the camera application at the screen, I'll give you a second to get the camera app opened and everything. Hopefully you have the QR code scanner switched on. If you don't, and if you do know what I mean by the QR code scanner, then do go into the settings and turn it on for this to work. It's just a little bit of an experiment, but we might use this going forward. We'll also probably, Andy, we can post the link to this on the website, I guess, or in the description.
Yeah, I'll put it in the description.
That's good, Brendan. Back, and you're 100% 25 frames a second again, so it's all good. Right. So as I was saying, we're going to do that little kind of giveaway thing of the cheat sheet thing. So let's choose. Hopefully, if your camera's ready, point your cameras at the screen now.
I'm going to do it too.
You're going to test to see if it works. That's good. It only lasts about 10 seconds, so be warned, you do need to take it. But hopefully, when you point your camera at the screen, it will come up with a little indicator for the Scan Me thing, and if you tap that, it should bring you directly to Dropbox, where you can download a little cheat sheet. Did it work for you? Okay.
Great.
Who wants to take a bet on the first comment where someone says didn't work for me on Instagram? 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'm killing the music. Okay, well, hopefully that worked. It is a little cheat sheet, as we say. We'll make it available via the description. Hopefully, we can put a link in there as well, and via the Mobiography website also. Now, we are coming towards the end of the show, and I think it's probably important that we recap why we're here, because obviously the workshops are a fundamental part of, as Andy said at the outset, giving back to the community. And there will be plenty more coming down the stream. There will be more workshops with other smartphone photographers. I'm going to be doing a workshop on LumaFusion as well. Haven't set the date yet, but we'll be announcing that as we go, so stay tuned for that. But of course, the reason we're ultimately here is because of the first ever Mobiography Awards. And here's a quick reminder of what the hell that is. And I have to be fair and give LumaTouch a bit of a shout out, because actually without their support, we'd probably all be stretching to the collar of our pins for paying for the system, for submissions and everything else that's involved in the competition. So I just want to do a quick touch on this, because I know I've had several DMs on Twitter in particular about what is the actual moving pictures category, because so many of the other photography competitions, pretty straightforward. You send a still image and that's the entry done. But because LumaTouch, the makers of LumaFusion, probably the best video editing app on iOS, have sponsored the actual awards, and they've created this special category, a multimedia category, if you will. So there's an opportunity to create a short video. I'd say a maximum of a minute. I don't think they've defined the time, but I personally would say a maximum of a minute. And basically it's to tell a story in pictures, but it can be a montage. And the exact wording that they gave us, it's on the Mobiography website if you want to read it yourself. Interpret it as you will. But it says, LumaTouch is sponsoring the first ever moving pictures category. Entrants will be judged on their ability to tell a story with a series of photos using a mobile video editing app like LumaFusion. So let me be clear, because a few people ask me this, is it okay if I use X? It's like, yes, if X is not LumaFusion, that's still perfectly fine. The submission is what we're judging, not the actual way that you did it, if you like. But it does have to be mobile created. That's the key thing. And the award for that, again, is it's $500. Actually, we should probably give a shout out to the different awards and things that we have. So I'll bang those up on screen now. Let's see. Yeah, okay. These, did they work? They do. Okay, good. So I'm still getting used to StreamYard, folks. Please bear with me. But yeah, so that's the LumaFusion Moving Pictures Award, and you know, I think this is a really exciting one. I'm sitting on the cusp between mobile still images and mobile video, and I think that space between is a really interesting space. If you've no idea what that might look like, have a look at the what's it called, the Press Photographer of the Year Awards. They have a multimedia category, and if you scan back to the last couple of years, you'll see some amazing hybrid video pieces that basically are a mixture of video and photography, and phenomenal pieces of storytelling. So if you look for inspiration for what this category stuff might look like, have a peek there, would be my advice. Here's our different categories. So street and urban, landscape and nature, people and portraits, digital art, the video multimedia category, in the LumaTouch Moving Pictures category. So that's everything. And again, reminder, the different prizes. So the overall winner, the grand prize, is $1,000, Moving Pictures Award from LumaTouch $500, and each one of the other categories, the winners will receive $250. But there's more than that, Andy. Like exposure. Let's talk a bit about that, because it's not just about the money. People who win this are going to get exposure in Mobiography magazine. Talk about that to me.
Yeah, what we're going to do is showcase the winners in a future issue of Mobiography magazine. But as well as that, we've just got a new sponsor, which is the premier photography site, thefoblographer.com. Huge website, and they will be featuring interviews with the winners and showcasing them on the Hello pages of their site. And Chris Gambit from the Foblographer has also agreed to join us on the judging panel, which we're really pleased about. And we'll have a few other judges to announce in the coming weeks.
On the judges thing, can I just grab the thistle and take the pain up front? So I had a few people kind of kicking me in the ankles about Sausage Fest and the like. Okay, we have to comment on it. I've replied privately to people, but we haven't really spoken about it publicly. But I think we probably should. So again, I mean, both of you have reached out into the network. Do you want to, Brendan, you want to talk about this for a second?
Yeah, I suppose like when we were setting up the competition, that we, we're trying to establish kind of leading lights, and that there were, identification of some fantastic, like I don't like the term female photography, because I think that we're all photographers if we're male or female, but that we were really trying to bring in some of the, the best names in photography. And we approached some of the female photographers. I won't say whose name they were, but for various reasons, they weren't able to come on board with us. But we will have in the next couple of weeks some big names in photography who also happen to be female, and that would be brilliant to have them on board as judges and contributing to all of this. So big names to be announced. I'm really excited about it.
Okay, very good. Listen, I'll just say a couple of people have messaged in on the YouTube link. They're asking for the link to my suggested multimedia category. I'll tweet that out on my own Twitter account if you want to have a look there, just not to kind of take up the thread. But yeah, the International Press Photographer of the Year Awards is what I was getting at. Listen, we've just gone slightly over time, but I think we've crammed a hell of a lot into the hour or thereabouts. probably worth saying a quick shout out. Like, if you want to connect with Mobiography between now and the next live show will be in 2 weeks' time. You can contact on a multitude of different platforms. So you can contact Andy via Twitter. You can get him on the Facebook, and there's a great Facebook community around Mobiography there if you want to join that. Obviously on Instagram at Mobiography, and if you're here, you've already found the YouTube link, so I don't need to share that with you, I guess. But do please reach out. Let us know what you thought of the actual live. Thanks for all your feedback and for your engagement in the actual live stream on YouTube. I thought it's gone very, very well. And any final words, gents, that you want to share with the audience as we wrap up the show? Brendan?
Well, I think, it's a very simple thing. Enjoy it. That photography is a fantastic hobby. Have fun with it. Experiment. Be curious. Get out and be creative and have fun.
Love that. Andy? Did Andy just literally freeze, or is he doing a really, really good job of staying very still? I don't know.
I think he must have frozen as well. Yeah.
Okay, well, you know, I'll put him on the spot in that case. I can't even hear him, let alone see him. So he's obviously left us. But anyway, yeah, so look, really appreciate you giving up the hour of your time on a Saturday. Hopefully you found it useful. To those who've asked multiple times in the actual live stream, these videos will remain online for playback on the Mobiography YouTube channel. And our plan will be, as I say, to do these frequently, so probably every 2 weeks, to be fair. And who knows, we might even keep doing them after the awards have closed. Again, the awards, just remember, close on the 20th of August, so there's still plenty of time to get your shots in. We've going to have a brief discussion about this. We may at sometime start to look at some of the submissions and have a bit of a discussion about that as a possible thing. We may also, because several people asked this in the live stream, could we go back and talk a bit more about specific photographs? Well, we jam-packed the hour today. That might be something we look at a later date, so we can do a little bit more in-depth on specific shots and techniques on that specific shot. But anyway, and the last thing, just to comment, a few people again have said, oh, damn, I missed the QR code. Can I get it? Yeah, so you can watch back the video once we've wrapped up and get the QR code there, or we will put the link into the description, and it will be available via the Mobiography website, and we will stick it out on social media as well. So you get loads of different places where you can pick it up. Anyway, I think that's it for the first one. I've enjoyed it. I'm hoping Andy's back. It would be remiss of me to leave the stream without having a chance to say goodbye. We don't know what happened. It's live.
I think I'm having internet problems. I think I need to put another 50p in the meter.
Go do it. Okay, well, look, we're an hour and 5, so I think we'll wrap it up. But Andy, any parting words, final thoughts before we go?
Amazing. It's been an amazing response. I'm really thrilled with it. And great presentation, Glenn. Brendan, and Glenn as well.
All of us, yeah. Great
multiple back rubs right there. Oh yeah, no, okay, let's go. Yeah, it's been a pleasure, and I've been quite happy with how the platform performed. But like I say, please, if you have feedback, suggestions, comments, anything you want to fire at us, please do. Some of the links we shared a minute ago, I might put them up as the final slide. But until the next one in 2 weeks' time, bye for now.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks for turning up.